Hello, everybody. Happy day, grand rising. I hope you're all doing well. So, I wanted to talk about what was recently put out in the news. And I don't watch the news, but I do read updates and certain articles and whatnot. But I want to talk specifically about that big gold heist that happened at Pearson Airport a couple of days ago. And I found it pretty fascinating. And so I thought, I'm going to have to look into this because it's not every day that you hear about a huge gold heist, especially in one of the big airports here in Canada. So I started doing some digging and, just kind of looking at it from a higher perspective. And so this is the conclusion that I came to, and this is just my own critical thinking, my own, my own belief. But the only way that was possible for that gold to be stolen was that it was an inside source that allowed it to happen. You see, that level of security when it comes to that kind of, like gold. There's insurance companies that are involved. There's the airport authority. There's, security. There's the highest levels of security clearance. People that are working with this type of stuff have to have a certain level of security clearance in order to even work in such a way with these sort of things. And yet they were able to steal the gold from where it was from where it was saved, and they had to have known who was going to be working that day so that the gold could have been smuggled through. The airport authority had to have been involved because, well, they're in charge of the daily security and the comings and the goings and the flights and the, the manifestos for what's going on what plane and blah, blah, blah. There's a high level of security involved when you're dealing with precious metals. And yet, they almost got away with it. And my belief is that this happens a lot and they get away with it a lot. And in this particular situation, I think the only reason they got caught is because somebody decided to get involved and stop this. I'll call them the good guys, whatever you want to call it. You see, in order for something like this to take place, you need to have a criminal ring of people working together. People on the inside that know the comings and the goings and all of the different things and all of the moving parts in order to time it so perfectly that they were able to get this gold out and stolen. A lot of the crimes that are committed within our country here in Canada, and I mean this goes for every country, but I'm going to speak about Canada because that's where I live. A lot of the crimes, a lot of the theft, a lot of the money laundering, they've all been orchestrated from within. And I know that's the tough pill for a lot of people to swallow, because to even fathom the idea of the chief of police, lawyers, government officials, top security clearance, and maybe even military, they would all have to be involved in order for this to take place. Because only the people with the highest level of clearance can even work in a situation like that. And let's talk about money laundering for a moment, because money laundering is nothing new. This has been happening since the dawn of time. But the casinos are one of the biggest places where money laundering takes place. And here in British Columbia, we have had years and years of people walking in with big bags of cash, going to the casino to wash their money. And there's video proof showing this, and yet nothing happened. Nothing happened. Don't you think that if you have video proof of people coming in with bags of money that they would just shut the casino down? That the investigation would lead to an arrest? Well, they tried that. And then all of a sudden the investigation just stopped. I find it just so fascinating because, you see, it has to be the insiders that are part of all of this. All the moving parts. It's very well orchestrated. So, money laundering is really nothing new. It's been happening for a long time, and they've been able to get away with it because you see, the people that make the laws and make the rules are also breaking their own laws and rules, and they have people that work with them to allow them to get away with it. The judges, the courts, the police, everybody, they're all in on it. You have to be all in on it in order for that to happen for years and years and years. Because if it was you or me, or any regular bloke off the street, that I can guarantee you that person would have been arrested and put in jail instantly. And yet, we have billions of dollars being laundered through casinos just here in British Columbia alone, and there's no investigations. There's nobody getting arrested because the people that are doing the crimes are the very people that are in power. Your governments, your politicians, your police, everybody that we pay through our taxpayers' money are the ones committing the crimes, and they help each other cover it up. So, let's go to money laundering in the real estate market. I mean, that's also been happening here in British Columbia. We have the highest cost of homes here in BC on the west coast of Canada. We have the highest level of taxes, but we also have the highest level of people buying homes with cash. I mean, yeah, I get that there's wealthy people, but that many wealthy people that have that much money that they can walk in and bid $300,000 over asking to buy a house? You see, they use homes to launder their money. And then they have an asset that their money is sitting in, and it's safe. They're also contributing to the false inflation of the market, creating this perpetual FOMO, so that more and more people are buying homes and getting themselves into debt while the criminals are laughing their heads off. Many of the people that laundered money here in Canada had ties to China. Our own government has even said that they love the Chinese. They love how the Chinese model works. Our own prime minister. Our prime minister sold Canada to China many, many, many years ago. So it's not very far-fetched to even say that there's a connection, because there is a connection. You see, money laundering has happened in every facet of society. Another form of money laundering is taxation. That's right. Taxation is a form of money laundering, because you have to think about it this way. They tax you on your income, and then whatever income you have left over, they tax you every single time you spend that money. And then every time you sell your home, you have to pay a land transfer tax. Every time you sell a car, you have to pay GST. Every time you park somewhere, you have to pay a tax. You have to pay carbon tax, electricity tax, hydro tax, school tax. The list of taxes is probably about this big. So they tax you on top, tax you on top, tax you. How is that even legal? It's not. It's not legal. And everybody has bought into it. But That's actually a form of money laundering because they're stealing money from you in every corner that they can get it. They will tax you on everything. Why do you think they want to get rid of cash? Because you see, with cash, you own your privacy. You own where you spend your money. But you see, they don't want you to do things. They want to own your money. They want to take as much of it as they can away. So they're going to put everything onto digital ID, and then they're going to tax you on everything. Our government is in the business of money laundering, of crimes against humanity, theft. This is a tough pill to swallow for many people who look at their government like a savior. But it's time to wake up and really start asking some big questions. What is really going on? Because there's been some very interesting things happening these last 10 years, but the last 5 years has been pretty interesting. And more specifically, even the last 2 to 3 years. We see governments pushing tyranny, coercion, bullying, attacking, censoring. Why? Why would they do such a thing? Well, it's really just their way of taking more and more and more control. Because they're greedy and because they're criminals. And because they know that the majority of people, especially here in Canada, don't really care. Because nobody speaks up in this country. People are too afraid to say, wait a second, I don't agree with what you're doing. Wait a second, that's unjust. Wait a second, that's discriminatory. Wait a second, something seems really weird. You see, because anyone that does stand up and ask questions are automatically defamed, attacked, discriminated, and censored. They don't want people asking questions. They want people to stay quiet and follow orders. This is why we have become so controlled. And this is why the government has become so powerful, because we have given our power to the government by simply staying quiet. You look at countries like France in Europe, where they have experienced horrific things under their government, and they certainly do not stay quiet. And when you have enough people that stand up and fight against this, the government becomes very scared, and the government may think twice, or the government will topple. And this is what happens when you have unity among people to fight for what is right. Here in Canada, unfortunately, due to programming and indoctrination, we have an entire country of people that don't see anything wrong, and we just got to pay our taxes and follow orders, and everything is great. Everything is just great. Well, I think that's because most people have closed their peripheral vision to what's really happening in the world. And they're choosing not to see what's going on because it's uncomfortable. And you see, Canada has never experienced a war or a revolution before. So we don't even know what a war looks like, even if it slapped us in the face. Because the war that has been taking place in Canada has been a war against the people, against our hearts, our souls, and our mind. And most people don't even understand what's going on because they're still watching the news. And the news basically tells people what to believe and what to do. So the majority of the crimes that occur within our country are done from within, are committed by the very people that we trust. There is corruption in every facet of our government, every government agency, every system, it's all part of the same ring of criminals. You see, criminal rings, mafias, gangs, whatever you want to call them, they work in very large groups, and they place people in strategic places in order to carry out these crimes. They will appoint people in places of high authority so that that person can turn a blind eye if something isn't done on the up and up. It happens in the financial industry every day. People that work in the stock market, the big hedge fund brokers, the big corporations. A lot of money laundering, a lot of money fraud happens within the stock market every single day. And they don't care about you. They don't care. They short stocks all the time. How is it that, these big CEOs, all of a sudden sell off all of their stocks a week before the entire market crashes? I mean, you have to have insider knowledge in order to have an up and up, to get ahead of it. It happens all the time. And the small people that are invested end up losing all of their money. The criminal activities happen from within every single system, including our government, our medical system, our judicial system, our financial system, our religious systems, our education system. All of the criminal activities that happen within these systems. And I know this does trigger a lot of people, because many people want to believe that there's good in the world, and there is good in the world. But you cannot be naive, and you cannot turn a blind eye because it's uncomfortable to acknowledge that perhaps your government has been committing crimes against humanity, stealing money. You see, it's a difficult pill to swallow, but it's an absolutely important thing to talk about. And I wanted to specifically bring this up because of that gold heist that took place, because that is a perfect example of criminal activity happening within people on the inside. So I'm going to just end it there. And I always also say, do your own research, use your own discernment. Don't believe what I say is truth. I'm simply just sharing my perspective, and hopefully it will create a little bit of, curiosity. And maybe you might look into it and start to ask some questions. Have a beautiful day, people. I love you.